Okay, well, hello. Thank you all so much for joining us on Zoom. My name is Dr. Catherine Moore McCallan. I'm the director of the Center for Latin American Arts, and we're honored to have Veronica Muñoz Najar Luque here today to join us for our roundtable. And Veronica is the associate curator of the art of the Spanish Americas at the Toma Foundation. And she has been integral to helping organize many of the recent stunning and impactful exhibitions of the art of the Spanish Americas across the nation at museums nationally and internationally. And we're honored that she's here today to speak to us about publishing and fellowship opportunities at UT Rio Grande Valley. And thank you all for joining us on Zoom. We're so glad to see you here. And the Carl and Marilyn Toma Foundation has made a huge impact in the field of Latin American art history and art conservation in museums, and also connecting scholars in a hemispheric dialogue between Latin America, Mexico, North and South America, and the United States, and also in Europe and Asia.
Yeah.
So they've played an integral role in bringing people together and helping students have opportunities. Come on, Ilana, you can sit here. Helping students have opportunities to study and travel and research, and also learn more about the Toma Foundation collection, which spans all the way from the early modern period in Spanish America to contemporary digital art and contemporary art in Europe, Latin America, and the US. So today, the focus of our talk is going to be about writing and research and publishing. And I've been really lucky to work with Veronica. We first got to know each other when we were accepted to be Toma Fellows in the inaugural Toma Fellowships program that's now flourishing with the Toma Foundation. And Veronica won the pre-doctoral fellowship because she was finishing her PhD at the University of California at Berkeley. And I won the postdoctoral fellowship, and I was here at UT Rio Grande Valley, and we got to know each other as fellows. And that's something we're going to talk about a little today, is advancing your research and your writing by making connections and collaborating and getting to know your colleagues, and how that produces new opportunities for writing and publishing. And so without further ado, we'll dive into some topics of conversation. And I want this to be something to inspire y'all to think about your own writing and your own research. And we'd love to take questions from anyone in the Zoom meeting, in the chat. We'll check the chat periodically. And also questions from all y'all here present today to ask Dr. Muñoz Najar for any advice that she might give as we all try to stay on top of our writing and achieve our publishing goals. So one of my first questions was about just getting into the habitus of writing and getting productivity fired up and consistent. And I wanted to ask if you have any advice on what is the best way to be productive in your writing, and tell us a little bit more about what you do to stay in the routine of writing.
Yes, so thank you. First of all, thank you, Catherine, for hosting me, and for being able to host in the next year, early next year, the Toma Foundation exhibition at IMAS that I hope that everyone will be able to see. And it's such a pleasure to be here at UTRGV. I've heard so much about it for Catherine these past years, and it's wonderful to finally be with you, sharing some ideas here at the campus. So I think that writing is something that doesn't come easy to anyone. It's, even the most accomplished writers and people who publish every year. So like one should treat it kind of like a ritual, right? You should, I think it's easier if you like devote a couple, like an hour or 45 minutes, every day, maybe at the same time, to kind of create the habit of writing. And don't be discouraged if you only write like 3 sentences, because that sentence will become a paragraph and eventually will become a page. So it's like, it's all about being committed, to kind of put your ideas into paper, which is something that it's not that easy to do, right? It's something that requires a lot of voluntad, how you say, self-will and
Motivation,
yeah, motivation, and so yeah, I think it's important to have be consistent and to have create a habit to write.
Mhm. I totally agree. And I think any writing that you get done any day is a win. So never feel discouraged and try to stay consistent in your writing goals. And I was thinking about when you finished your PhD, how sometimes a new job on the horizon can actually help you be more motivated to get your writing done and to be ready, to prepare yourself for any job opportunities. Because we always think, oh, we have to have our thesis finished or our dissertation finished to then be eligible for a job.
Yes.
But I think you had an exciting opportunity in that
Yes.
way. It helped you finish your writing.
Exactly, and that was my case because the job opportunity with the Toma Foundation opened, but Carl Marlin really wanted me to finish my dissertation first because they know that it takes so much time and so much drive of you to finish like a project that is as big as a dissertation or a master thesis or even a seminar paper, that can be 20, 25 pages. So they wanted me to focus solely on that before I started working at the foundation, because I would have to shift gears and start working on other capacities as well. That was not only researching, but of course, creating contacts with museums or working in acquisitions for the foundation. So it was important for them that I have, completed my writing, my dissertation before I joined the foundation. So it was also kind of a motivation for me to finish, right? And I remember in Berkeley, normally you need to teach while you're writing your dissertation, but they have an option that if you have, for one semester, you can solely focus on your dissertation, but only if you're gonna finish it, because if not, they make you pay tuition. So it was, I had these two really big, important things I needed to accomplish, like finish the dissertation in order to get the job, and finish the dissertation in order to not pay, thousands of dollars of tuition. So those, I had those motivations, I believe.
Yeah, and sometimes deadlines and motivations like that for getting a job or not acquiring extra penalization fees.
Yes.
Sometimes that's the greatest way to motivate yourself and to stay on track. And so I wanted to encourage everyone here today to think about applying for publishing papers that you've written or your master's thesis, and don't be afraid to let that deadline or that pressure of having to finish influence you applying at all, because it really does provide some incredible motivation and passion and just focus. Like you set everything aside that you thought was important, because you say, I have this goal, I have to achieve it. And you did with,
yes,
in your case and many of our other cases.
Yeah, maybe sometimes working under pressure or writing under pressure, it can be beneficial, if you know how to handle the stress, but having deadlines is important, and of course, complying with them.
And goals too.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and I wanted to talk a little bit about collaboration. Sometimes I feel like the greatest work that we do not on our own or solely for ourselves, but in a collaboration with others. And it takes coordination and consideration and working with a colleague or a group. But I wanted to stress the importance of that and ask if you could talk a little bit about collaborations. I know you and I have done one with the Latin American and Latinx Visual Culture Journal, which our class has read a few essays from that journal. But can you talk a little bit about the benefits of collaborating versus working on your own?
Yes, so first I wanted to talk how this journal collaboration came to be. So first, Catherine and I in 2019, we got together and we decided we want to do a conference of Art of the Spanish Americas, bringing scholars from the US, Europe, and Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, Peru, to Lima to talk about what important aspects of the field and to advance the field. So we had the opportunity to, thanks to the fellowships that we had from the Toma Foundation and their support, to basically have the have the conference take place in Lima. And then we said, we had like 20 speakers in total in that conference, and we said we need this, even though the conference were are online, and I think they are in the center website or
Oh, yes.
YouTube.
The recordings
Yes,
of-
the recordings of the talks are in the center YouTube. But we said, we need to make this more available for more people. So we thought we'll pitch, this idea of having like 10 talks published in a journal, and we approached the Latin American visual culture and Latinx visual culture journal. And they told us, okay, we're happy to do it. And we said one of our only requirements is that the talks are published both in Spanish and English, because we feel that there's sometimes, we forget that these artworks are coming from Latin America, and that also the people that want to learn about it are, everywhere, not only in the US, but everywhere. So they said, okay, you can do it. And Catherine and I became the editors of the volume, but we also decided we should write like an introductory essay for both volumes. We had 2 volumes. So it was, an exciting process, because this was the first time that we were collaborating or writing together. And we just decided, what is the best form to address an introduction to such a rich volume that is going to talk about sculptures, murals, paintings, right, in different parts of the Americas. So we just, decided to talk about indigeneity and historiography
and localized
devotions and regional art, and how regional art is flourishing. So we had our topics, and then we said, okay, you write this part, I write this part, and then we, kind of compared notes and brought everything together.
Yeah, and it was really wonderful to collaborate together on this publication, because we got to help each other meet our goals and just stay in touch. But also whenever things got tough, like sometimes our editors would be difficult, and they'd say, we changed the deadline. It's now 2 months earlier than what we told you it would be. And we're doing everything in Spanish and English. So all our Latin American scholars were submitting their papers in Spanish, and they had to be edited. And then we had to translate them to English, and all the English speaking scholars were submitting in English. So we had to edit it first and then translate to Spanish. And so when the editors kind of threw us these curveballs, we had each other, and we were a unified team, and we were able to get things done. And I think we were able to publish our own work and show what our own fields of expertise are, but we also got to collaborate. And I know some of our students, one of our students is here today. She gave a paper with her colleagues at the College Art Association, and they chaired a panel. And it was really nice to see, even though all of y'all had different works and approaches to your own artistic practice and the methodological approach, you came together and worked together. And it's not always easy, right? It's not always rainbows and butterflies, but in the end, you stick together and you get it published together. And there's something about that motivation of a collaborator and a colleague to help. And sometimes I think the greatest work we do with others, not just on our own. So
yes, I agree.
And tell me more about your thoughts on how to publish, because we might have students that have
Mhm.
some work they've been working on, or an essay that was really powerful and it changed the conversations a lot in your seminars, or it means a lot to you and you think it could be a contribution to the field. Can you speak a little bit about
Mhm.
how to go about where, like, choosing a place to publish, and then also how to connect with scholars and editors in the field that can help get you to where you need to go?
Yes. So first of all, you need to decide which journals would be a good platform for your essay. For example, if it's the arts of the Spanish Americas field, that is my field, you can go to something more ubiquitous to the field, like the Latin American Review, for example. Or you could also go, if it's an art history paper, go to a more, it's not established, but a more canonical journal that is like, for example, the Art Bulletin, right? So you first identify which journals would be a good platform for your paper. And then I think you need to review the requirements, because some of them say, you need to have a paper of 16,000 words with characters and maybe 30 images. So you try to adequate your paper into their requirements, because if not, you know that could be one of the reasons why it gets rejected, because it doesn't adequate to their parameters. But of course, also a great thing is, like, if you go to a conference, they always sell books and the publishers are there. They also attend the seminars and the panels, and they start seeing which authors they would like to have in their journal. So sometimes you could get an invitation just for creating those networks, meeting publishers and editors in the field, or maybe even friends that have already published, right? They can let you know how the process was for them. I know that, for example, for some, since they accept your paper, then you will have, of course, revisions by reviewers, and then, you'll have your proof essay, but it can take even a year from when you approach the journal until your essay is published, right? But I think that it's really important that if you believe in a paper, or of course a chapter of the dissertation, or maybe even, the entire thesis or dissertation, like you think about it as a book, it's really important to approach publishers and editors, because they are always thirsty to have new materials and new, to publish new ideas, and have, like, also support. I think that nowadays they don't only support, like, scholars that are really established in the field, but also new voices.
Mhm. And what's your advice on how to polish up a paper that you have written, or that an idea you have, like really getting into the research part of it? Can you give some advice on utilizing your library,
Mhm.
reading current publications,
Yes.
and also other resources that you can tap into for solid research?
So of course you have to be in touch with your librarian, right? That is someone who can give you numerous, books and journals and articles that can basically enrich your topic, right? And of course read, the materials that are, that were written 30 years ago and are part of the historiography of your topic, but also, what it has been published in recent years, so that you are kind of, what is going on in the field. And something that I've done when I had the idea a bit more developed is always have a writing group with friends that also want to publish, or I had a writing group when I was writing my dissertation. So we were four, and we all were publishing, or not publishing, we all were writing, about, one was writing about modern Spain, and then I was writing about, the the tropical lowlands in the 18th century, and the other one about 15th century Renaissance architecture. So that didn't matter. What mattered was that everyone was going to read what you presented each session really carefully and help you not only, with syntax and grammar mistakes that we all make, but also help you with like the methodology and, the flow of the ideas. And so having like, kind of feedback from peers that are probably on the same page than you trying to publish or trying to finalize a paper is also a good way to not only like show your research, but like show how your ideas are starting to be formed.
Yeah, I agree. Like all great things do not happen in isolation.
Yes.
And having that collaboration, that kind of fellowship with others, even outside your field that may have nothing to do with your art practice or your research agenda or what you're working on, just colleagues that you can share your work with, and you can reciprocate to do the same. I think with publishing and research, being a great colleague matters, and kindness is always returned, and it builds on positive projects and helps you succeed and helps others succeed. So it's a wonderful thing to keep in mind. And I also wanted to ask you if you could share with us a little bit about the Toma Foundation and about its collection and also fellowship opportunities, because we all want to excel in our projects, but we have to think about funding opportunities and ways that we can seek out financial support for our research initiatives and also art conservation initiatives. We're excited for the Toma Foundation collection to come to the IMAS, as Veronica said, in February 2025. And some of the artworks that are going to be in the show were recently restored, thanks to the Toma Foundation dedication to restoring artworks, not only in the US, but also in Latin America. They reach out to support museums in Latin America to help with restoration projects that might not be possible if they weren't otherwise helping provide that motivation. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more and share screen about the
Yes.
Toma Foundation
Let me see how.
projects.
Okay.
Can everybody in the Zoom see the screen? Maybe somebody give a thumbs up just so we know. Zoom. pretty sure
I
it's
also wanted to say that Steven Schneiders told us that he founded the MFA in creative writing at UTRGV, and he recommends the book, The Writer's Portable Mentor by Priscilla Long at UNM Press. So that's
Awesome.
probably a great outlet. And yeah, so at the Toma Foundation, the foundation has 4 collections and 4 areas. So one is digital media, so artworks that are really currently being created by artists, with coding and so on. Then they have post-war painting, which was actually the first category that Carl and Marilyn started collecting, and they have shaped canvas and hard edge and op art and color field and so on. Then we also have a collection of Japanese bamboo, so sculptures and baskets made of Japanese or made by Japanese artists with bamboo. And the 4th collection, which is the one that I oversee, is the arts of the Spanish Americas. And we have around 230 paintings that have been acquired through the past almost 30 years, when Marilyn started collecting in 1997. And the Thomas interest in this field grew not only to, collecting the artwork, but also sharing it with the public, because they believe in education and pedagogy, and they want everyone to learn about this field of art that is not that well known in the US, for example, right? And they realize that if there's no people studying this art, the field would die, right? Because no more knowledge would be created. So they decided in 2018 to launch these, not all of them, but some of these fellowships. So first they launched the pre-doctoral and postdoctoral fellowship, which basically students of, can apply if they have a project, of course, based on art of the Spanish Americas, right? And it gives you the opportunity as a student or as a postdoc to finish your dissertation if you're a student, or if you are a postdoc, create an exhibition or write your book, do research for your book, create symposiums, where scholars will gather and publish the talks that are given at the symposiums. And here we have all the information for how to apply to the fellowship. And so it's for the pre-doctoral dissertation fellowship, you get $50,000 per year. And you can we don't have any parameters of how you use the money, as long as that you're using it to advance your project. And for postdoctoral fellowship, we give 65,000 for 1 or 2 years projects. And then we also have the Research and Travel Awards that are mainly, in the past years, we also offered it to master students, but also a lot of academics that are already established and, they cannot apply to the postdoctoral fellowship because they graduated more than 10 years ago. They, for example, want to write an essay and they need to go to Latin America for 3 months to conduct archival research and see collections and museums. They apply to this fellowship, and it can give you up to $25,000 to use in travel and research throughout 6 months. And then we also have another fellowship that might be of interest to the students of UTRGV, which is the Exploratory Fellowship, which is a fellowship that if you have decided that you wanna, for example, write your master thesis or your dissertation on the arts of the Spanish Americas, and you are just, wondering if this might be a good fit for you and you want to go to Latin America and start, making local connections in Latin America with curators, scholars, professors. This fellowship allows you to have up to $5,000 and to conduct, research and, connections in Latin America, just to develop a future topic that might be connected to the arts of the Spanish Americas. And then last year, we established our conservation grant, which is a grant that supports the restoration and conservation of artworks in Latin America, or even, if conservators need to learn, for example, the practice of tear mending, which is really interesting because it allows you not to line the paintings with, for example, wax. It's a less invasive treatment. And then, for example, this grant gives them the capacity to invite someone who is versed in this technique and have, like, for example, a workshop in their own countries, in Peru or in Colombia, and learn the technique in order to, use it in their paintings. And this year was we had our inaugural fellows. One is the Patrimony Center of UTEC, which is a university in Lima, and they are restoring a chapel that was in complete abandonment in the Dominican church, and it's a chapel that is covered with paintings all over. So they are restoring that chapel, and it's the first stage. So they are restoring like 3 paintings, and then, but the TOMA grant is going to allow them to get more funding and to start the project. So that's great, and they can reapply next year to continue. And our second grantee is Rodrigo Villalobos, who is a restorer in Querétaro. in Mexico, and he's working on a painter that was working in Querétaro in the 18th century, and he's working on a restoring a specific painting and kind of, conducting more research about the artist in the archives and so on. So we're really excited about this grant and, about giving back to the communities in Latin America.
Does anybody have any questions about the fellowships or also about the research that we were talking about earlier, just your writing practice and getting into research and writing related to vis-a-vis what the Toma Foundation is doing, or any of it is inspiring to y'all?
Yeah, I'm really curious if there's any museum studies journals that y'all might be able to help me connect with. Yesterday when y'all came to visit the museum, I was telling you about the action that happened with Julie Morales, the historic action of her being in the museum space. And I've reached out to one of the professors that we worked with closely, who actually worked on this exhibition that we have here in the library, Dr. Servando Hinojosa, who actually knew her family very closely and did some anthropology work with the Peyote Shrines of South Texas, and thinking about how we could potentially publish something in a relevant field. I don't know. I feel that moment in and of itself is very historic, not only for the museum, but the museum field in the United States as a whole. I think it definitely deserves recognition, as well as, like you said, spreading the pedagogy and educating the community about the culture here, about what the species here. It has a lot of layers that really it transcends culture, art, and science. So I think bringing all those together would make a very strong publication. And in talking with another one of our project advisors, Dr. Jill Vexler, she really encouraged me to start specific and then go broad in terms of the importance of it and how that plays out in the larger meaning for the context of American museums. But more than anything, I'm really interested in what journals should I start looking for. So right now, when y'all were saying, contact the library,
Yes.
look here, that's kind of something I'm going to start doing. But I know since y'all have experience publishing in these types of journals, and if you think maybe would a museum studies journal be the best fit, because conversely, this is also related to an art exhibition. So there is some presentation of these ideas of, I try to write, like you said, write ideas and get them down on paper. And I like to write the title first, because that gets me kind of in the zone of the scope of where I'm going to go, and then thinking of Indigenous representation in American museum spaces through contemporary art. So would an art history journal be better, or I think is there wiggle room there that I can kind of play?
Yeah, I think you could, it's a great topic, and I think you could pitch it to an art history, maybe, an art history or even an anthropology journal, or a museum studies journal, because we're dealing with exhibitions and with history of exhibitions in the United States.
Yeah, there's the Journal of the Institute of Conservation, and then the International Journal of Conservation Science that are first came to mind. So you could, in a journal that's specifically focused on art conservation, but then also branch out into something a little bit more broad.
Because I guess it does have to do a little bit with, I think, conservation on different levels. So not only conservation of art and the pieces, but I think conservation of narratives, then scientifically speaking, conservation of spaces and of species. So I think there's a kind of a lot of levels there, and it's very, I guess, broad, you can say, in the topics that could be covered and talked about, but in thinking about what would be the best fit to
or even a journal that is more broad, as you say, for example, like the one where we publish Loud. They publish about exhibitions and contemporary art and ancient America's art. So it's maybe that could be also a good platform, because the editors are interested in everything that is Latin American and Latinx.
Kind of cultural continuity.
Yes,
through that.
yeah.
Okay, interesting. And what was the name of that journal?
So when we read last week, the Latin American and Latinx Visual Culture Journal with University of California Press.
Yeah.
I think also the Museum of the American Latino has a section of their publication that is focused on art restoration. So you could apply for something a little bit more Latin American focused. And some of these journals are online, like the Museum of the American Latinos journals are online. There's also the Art Conservator that's online. So we found with our publication with the Latin American and Latinx Visual Culture Journal, having it online is so nice because you don't have to subscribe to the journal to have access. And the Toma Foundation helped us negotiate for the articles to be free, because it's not a free journal, but our articles from the 2-volume publication we did are free. And so you can negotiate with the journals, like if it's something that you have a fellowship funding project with, that gave us the gravitas to say this should be shared and open access forever.
That was gonna be my next question. How do you make these publications open access? Because if there's one thing that I cringe my gears is
Right.
paywalls as soon as you're trying to get to the
Yeah.
journal. And all this should really be open access. and open
Exactly.
everywhere.
And some journals are open access everything. So you can also pick the ones you want to submit to publish in a journal that you already know is free and open access. And the more obscure the journal, the less likely it is for it to be free. Or check with your library. Again, this is why a great relationship with your librarian is so important. You can ask your librarian, what are the most likely journals to be funded under a library subscription, like JSTOR, for example, as y'all know. JSTOR is always, almost always in every library free for university students. So you'd want to publish with a journal that is represented under JSTOR versus maybe a less known, or it's not that they're known, it's just under that umbrella. You can target that and make those your primary places to ask to publish, so that you know it'll be open access. So that's important. I agree. And the article we're going to read in class today later, the Colonial Latin American Review, some of their articles are free. All their art reviews and reviews of exhibitions are free. And so when they approached me to publish a review of the Blanton Museum of Art show, I accepted it because I knew that the publication would be free and open access. So you just have to kind of have that in mind when you're navigating where to submit. That's a great question. Any other questions or thoughts? We're really excited that we could all be here together, and we actually are going to transition in just a little bit to Veronica talking about the exhibition that's going to be at the IMAS. And we're talking about creating community wall labels for the artworks at the IMAS. And Dr. Christopher Driggers, who is now the curator at the San Antonio Museum of Art, he when he was at the Tucson Museum, he started a project of creating community wall labels. And so you have the wall label that says a painting is, its medium, its date, its title, but then next to it, members of the community were invited to share their thoughts and what moved them about the art, or what their response was, or how it's relevant to their field. And it could be anything from poetry to music to graphic design, and encouraging that community voice engagement so that we can think about how this exhibition can mean something and what it means to our community. So everyone's welcome to stay and listen to Veronica share with us about the pieces in the show. And we're excited to learn more about what's going to be coming to the IMAS in February. But if anybody had any other questions about publishing and writing, it's such a process. So I'd love any other thoughts. Okay. Well, no problem. Yes, please. And if anybody wants to structure any questions in the chat, sometimes it helps to have your words written in the chat to ask if there's any other questions. Are there any other questions in the chat?
Professor Stephen Schneider said that he teaches a class There is a graduate course on ekphrasis and writing poetry about art this spring. Next spring, he's teaching that, so.
Awesome,
Mhm.
nice. Yeah, and I think thank you so much for sharing that, Professor Schneider. And it's such an important point to remember that all of the classes that students take, all the classes that we teach at the university, they're becoming increasingly more interdisciplinary. And so much of the research that a scholar in the field of anthropology can share with an art historian really deepens and enriches both fields. And creative writing, your contributions and looking at poetry and creative works vis-a-vis visual arts is so powerful. And same with music and the visual arts. Some of the most interesting concerts I've been to lately have had artworks displayed behind the orchestra or the trio, and we're looking at artworks change on a screen painted by postmodern artists and listening to postmodern contemporary music. So I encourage all of y'all to think interdisciplinarily and take classes outside your field and also collaborate with scholars and artists and museum curators outside your field, because you'll find it really broadens and enriches your work. Well, thank you all for your wonderful comments, and we had such a nice time visiting with y'all. I hope it was inspiring and you feel like you have a sense of community and fellowship with us and your faculty mentors and your student mentors and student colleagues, because it really is something, publishing and writing and is something that must be done in fellowship and not just in a vacuum. So I hope that, and it's also a process. It takes time, it takes discipline, and it takes patience and courage. So don't ever feel discouraged if you get turned down by one editor or one journal, because where one door closes, another one opens.
Yeah.
And there's always a place for your voice. And we look forward to helping mentor you all and being a part of that. So thank you all for coming. And
Thank you.